tomorrow.
Yeah, every
In
third.
honor of Jamboree in the Hills, here's my Jambo in July, Koozie. This thing is weathered, as you can see. It's been through several train wrecks.
Couple jambos, huh?
Yes. Are we live?
We are live. We're gonna go ahead and hit the intro.
Dude, play that music, bro. Anytime now.
Oh.
Um,
I see what's going on here.
Nailed it.
Take two.
Another flawless start.
I know this. I'll never get the handle with this button board.
Did it freeze or did it just die?
I don't know.
That's your on.
Well, it froze up. I couldn't hear anything over here. I mean, the good news is nobody's watching, so it's fine. Otherwise, that would be very embarrassing on my part.
It is
recorded. Yeah. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Master Debate with Quade. I'm joined by the same two knuckleheads again, Nick and Adam. We have a good topic for you tonight. Last week we got a little bit on the dark side. Hopefully this week's goes a little bit cleaner. Nick, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Just living the dream.
How's the weather in South Florida right now?
It's pretty ball swampy down here.
So average.
Yeah, pretty par for the course.
Adam, how about you, buddy? What's going on with you?
Oh, not too much. Just preparing for this debate. I'm undefeated. I'm going to keep it that way.
Ooh. Dropping that. He's throwing that right in there. Yeah, we're going to jump right into it tonight. The topic for this week's debate is in the past 100 years, the most the most famous celebrity deaths in the last 100 years. So that means take out things like Abraham Lincoln, for example. So just so everybody's kind of on the same playing field, we don't have any super old, famous, well-known deaths on this list. These are more modern than that. So basically anything in the 1900s, and some of them are in the 2000s. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to have you guys share your list, and we're going to debate, try to break it down to the top 5, see if you have any shared ones on your list. Adam, as the defending champ, two-time champ, you can go ahead and introduce your list first. You're then going to have the opportunity to either bring one up first or let Nick go first. Go ahead. Tell us your 10, Adam.
All right. So at number 1, I had JFK. That's pretty obvious. That's a big one. Number 2, I had Adolf Hitler. Also pretty big, Nick. Pretty big. Osama bin Laden after that. Michael Jackson. Martin Luther King Jr. John Lennon. Dale Earnhardt. Steve Jobs. Kurt Cobain. And Roberto Clemente.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So for number 1, I got Paul Walker. You might know from Fast and Furious fame. Number 2, the one guy that got killed with Nicole Brown Simpson. Number 3, Michael Jackson.
There's a shared.
Yeah.
Time out. Do you want to go ahead and specify who that one guy was that got killed with Nicole Brown Simpson while we're there?
He was like a busboy or a waiter or something. I don't.
Ronald Goldman was his name.
Yeah, Ronald McDonald.
I almost said Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman. Dude, like Nate. Princess Diana comes in after Michael Jackson on my list. And the girl that got killed with the guy that got killed with Nicole Brown Simpson. Nicole Brown Simpson herself makes my list. Dale Earnhardt. There's
another share. That was like my joke one, but okay. Nick totally frozen on us.
Nick, where'd you go, buddy?
I'm right here, right here. I said Andy Dick.
Oh, we didn't hear you.
Andy
We heard you
Dick.
that time.
Yeah.
Andy
I'm
Dick's
pretty
about
sure
dead.
Andy Dick is not dead. He should be. I would be okay if he was, but I think Andy Dick is still alive.
Well, then take him off the list.
I could be wrong. I honestly have no idea if Andy Dick is dead or alive.
Neither do I, actually. I assume he's still alive, but he might be dead, Nick.
I didn't actually Google it. I just put him on the list. I haven't heard nothing from him.
We'll go ahead and leave him on there because if he is alive, he could be dead just as well, and it'd be fine with all of us. I think we would agree on that. Next.
Tupac. And then the one guy from Milli Vanilli. And last but not least, Billy Mays here for death.
Ooh. I don't know how you thought these were going to be similar. Yours are crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I got to tell you,
I think I got a good case.
I expected more similarities. Nick, you're all over the board, dude.
Thanks.
There are two shared ones, Michael Jackson and Dale Earnhardt. So we're going to kind of slide them through. We'll talk about them briefly before we start to debate the other ones. Something that's interesting about these two, for me personally, and maybe you guys can chime in also, let me know what you think. I can tell you exactly where I was, especially for Dale Earnhardt when he died. It was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Daytona 500, the final lap of the Daytona 500. And Sterling Marlin, I think it was, clipped his rear end and spun him up into the wall, and he was killed on impact.
Rubbins racing.
Yeah, I guess whatever you say there. I was at the bowling alley as a small boy. We were teenagers or whatever. I remember watching that, not thinking it was a bad wreck at all. And then it turns out when I got home, or my dad telling me that he died, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Michael Jackson, when he died, I didn't really give a shit.
But do you remember where you were when you heard that?
I do. Actually, it's funny. I remember I was sitting on my couch in my apartment, and I was it came on the news or across the TV or whatever, and this girl that I was talking to, hanging out with, dating, whatever at the time, I texted her and I said, "Did you hear Michael Jackson died?" And she said, "I don't give a shit." That's exactly what she said. And that's when I knew that she was not meant for me.
It didn't work out.
Nope, that was the end of it. That was our last conversation. Nick, what are your thoughts on either one of these deaths, Michael Jackson or Dale Earnhardt?
Yeah. I got to be honest, Quade. I understand what you said. You broke up there, but it's fine.
Michael Jackson, Dale Earnhardt. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? Well, Michael Jackson, that was a hard one for me to take because I grew up a Michael Jackson fan. I was jealous of all the little boys that got to go to Neverland Ranch. It looked like such a good time. And then you found out what really happened there, and it just, you had to push that out of your mind to keep the dream alive. And then when he died, well, everybody becomes innocent once they die, right? Everybody forgot about the whole kid touching.
Well, mind you, keep in mind he was never convicted of any of those crimes. He was acquitted on every case that he ever went to trial with, I believe.
But the fact that you said he was acquitted on every case he went to trial on, that says something in and of itself that it was like more than one time.
Accused more than one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the details of that stuff. I tried not to follow it as closely as you did because I didn't get off on it like you did.
Okay, I'll give you one, Quade, because Nick was the only person, when we were kids, who stuck up for Michael Jackson. You remember that, Nick? You loved that guy. We said, that dude's a kid toucher. He's finger blasting kids' shirt pipes. And you were like, no way, dude.
Not Michael. No way. No way it could happen.
He sang "Beat It."
Yeah, he's saying "Beat It." There's nothing weird about that.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bunch of. He turned into a car in his movie and had a bunch of kids jump in him. It's normal.
Oh,
when he touched kids
in him.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, Nick, in all seriousness, did you stick up for him trying to be smart, like funny, wise guy because nobody else was and you knew it wasn't the popular thing to do?
Well,
or did you actually really believe in what you were saying and you loved him and you were a big fan?
Well, 9 years old, I really didn't think he was a rapist.
He loved him.
Yeah, I was a big Michael Jackson.
Yeah, he was legit.
That's
absolutely.
I can honestly say that I am more of a fan of his now than I was when he was alive. I never really cared for him, to be honest with you, but after he died and I watched some like tributes and this and that and kind of, learned how much of a genius he was when it came to music, I have a different respect for him now than I did when he was living, which is probably unfortunate.
Yeah.
What about Dale Earnhardt death? I'm very surprised that one is shared on your two lists. Michael Jackson, I understand. The Dale Earnhardt one, that kind of surprised me. Nick, what do you think about that?
Well, Adam and I kind of have a running joke where we take pictures of like number 3 live forever bumper stickers on cars and send them to each other. So I thought it'd be a good one to include.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
So that explains it. This was strictly a sick and twisted joke on both of your ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you think about it, like the star of let's say the star of the NFL died while playing the game, that would be pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, I was going to compare it to somebody else that you have on your list, Adam, and that's Roberto Clemente. And we're not going to get into that right now, but it's kind of a similar thing. I mean, Dale Earnhardt was as popular or more popular than any other driver, at the time, whether you liked him or not. For it to happen, the last lap of arguably the biggest race of the season, it's a big deal.
Oh yeah. Well, if you think about it, like if you went out to a NASCAR race right now and you ask people who's your favorite NASCAR driver, they would 50% would probably still say Dale Earnhardt. So I mean, in that sport, he's like a god, or he is the god. So yeah. And then he died while doing it, though, which is pretty good way to go out if you want to get on our list anyway.
I would be curious to see if there are any other professional athletes, like at the top of their game, that have actually died during the competition.
There was a hockey player back.
No, I mean like actual sports.
Ooh, sick burn.
Ooh. Yeah, driving in circles is more of a sport than hockey. Go fuck yourself.
Show's over.
So we will be looking for a new guest for next week because Nick is not going to be here.
And Adam stays undefeated.
All right. Well, we're going to move on from Michael Jackson and Dale Earnhardt. Those two were shared on the list. We're going to kind of push them through. And we're going to allow each of you now to introduce one at a time, but 5 off of your remaining list. So, Adam, since you're defending champ, it is your option whether you want to introduce one right now or you want to let Nick introduce one of his first.
I'm going to go first this time. Changed up the strategy a little bit, but I'm going first. And I am going to say John F. Kennedy. And obviously, for obvious reasons, he's a president who got assassinated while in office, which is a major thing for this country. But the guy was super beloved by most people, except the guy who killed him. But what followed his death with these huge conspiracy theories, it's made that whole story and his death in particular really live on. So that's why I picked him as my number 1. He's my number 1 seed, and I don't think he can be beaten. Go ahead, put Ryan Goldman up there.
I got this one. You know who I'm going with? He was a legend in our minds. He was number 1 in our hearts. He was able to sell water to the sea. I'm talking about Billy fucking Mays. This dude came into our homes every day to sell us products that we needed on a daily basis. He changed lives. What did JFK ever do? Banged a bunch of broads, He had a failed invasion of Cuba. Billy Mays gave us OxyClean. And another thing about Billy Mays, he was also probably the first Morn celebrity on Twitter. This was like right around the time the whole hashtag thing started when he died. And that was the first time they sent out that major love. Because if there's one thing about Billy Mays, he sold us products, he sold us opportunity, hope. But wait, there's more. He sold us love.
I like the other guy better. Not the guy who's doing it now. I mean the guy who like throws things out the window and got in trouble for like beating up a hooker. I like that guy better.
Oh, the ShamWow guy?
ShamWow.
Vince with ShamWow.
Seemed like a better product anyway. I've never used OxyClean, so. But
Adam, what is your rebuttal? Why should JFK win over whatever this guy's name is?
I mean, for obvious reasons, he's a president of the United States. I like I said, the conspiracy theories that followed, I think that's what started conspiracy theories. I mean, really, that's the number one conspiracy theory too. So, Billy, what's his last name? Whatever it is,
Billy Mays.
I don't think he's going to be able to compete with JFK for importance in long-term historical sense. But
Are you kidding me?
I am not. I mean, I've never used a single product of Billy Mays sold it, and that's no lie.
Just don't know it because he sold it so damn well.
I'm not sure I follow that.
I'm going to do my duties and interject here at this time. I got to be honest. When you guys were reading through your list and I wrote Nick's list down and I wrote Billy Mays, I had no idea who it was. I thought it was a character from Major League.
Willie Mays.
Okay, tomato, whatever. I will tell you this.
You know who Billy Mays is? Hi, Billy Mays here with OxyClean. Do you have cum stains in your shorts? Just squirt this on there and pow, they're gone. But wait, there's more.
I will say this. Nick, you did a phenomenal job of arguing for this Billy Mays character. I honestly didn't know who he was until obviously you started talking about him and describing OxyClean. Then I realized who it was. You did a phenomenal job of pulling a rabbit out of your ass and actually making me laugh and kind of almost thinking about voting for you for a moment. However, there is no way possible that any sane person, and I'm not claiming that any of you are sane, could say that Billy Mays' death was more famous or well known than John F. Kennedy's. Adam clearly proved that JFK basically started. He is the conspiracy theory,
right? We don't even know how JFK died. When you think about it,
you don't know how Billy Mays died either.
He was snorting
cocaine
or OxyClean.
Did he seriously die of cocaine overdose?
Yeah, cocaine in his system. He liked to party. He was one.
I guess so. Wow.
All those sales guys on TV do. They love the party.
Well, in that case, I made a decision.
Okay.
My decision was already made up. That didn't change my decision. I applaud your efforts, Nick. You made me laugh. But at the end of the day, this argument, it's a no contest. The clear winner is JFK and Adam for the first round.
All right. Fine,
I feel like this is what I think just happened. I think Adam played that one very well, strategy-wise, bringing a big gun out, coming out firing, and I think Nick knew that this was one of the forgotten ones that really didn't have a chance no matter who it went up against. You might as well throw it up against JFK. Maybe something crazy happens and I actually pick you. Otherwise, it's just a loss anyhow, and you wasted Billy Mays, which is no waste at all.
Exactly. That's what they said when he died.
Right. Nick, I'm sorry, but you are up now. You get to introduce your second one.
All right. So apparently, famous figures are your guys' thing. So I guess I'll go with Princess Diana. Princess Diana was not just an American icon, she was a world icon. This broad married a soon-to-be prince or king or some shit like that. And she was, you want to talk about conspiracy theories, possibly killed by the royal family because she turned into a bit of a hua. Everybody knew about her death. Elton John did an amazing tribute for her. Her funeral went on TV for multiple days. We saw every step. We saw every shovel of dirt that went onto the casket. Everybody cared about Princess Diana. Boom.
That's
Adam.
impressive, Nick. Great argument.
Thank you.
What I will do, I will put up against her. I'll put up Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, this was basically the head guy for the civil rights movement for Black people to have equal rights in the United States, which is his message still lives on today. And he was murdered. He was assassinated by a guy named James Earl Ray. And now that's I don't know that guy's name because I don't watch Star Wars, but it was close. But basically, Martin Luther King was, for the African American people who were fighting, Jim Crow and things like that, especially in the South. He was the main guy for them. And I don't think Princess Diana really contributed anything but her celebrity status.
That's not true. Princess Diana did a lot of humanitarian work, and she did it all around the world, not just in her country of origin. Look, I can't really argue against Martin Luther King.
That's why I picked it.
Like a horrible racist. So I'm just going to argue for Princess Diana. She changed the face of the royal family. She put a total humanitarian face on the royal family, to where she went out and she was one with the people, something that the royals weren't. And even when she, divorced Prince Charles, she was still the princess. Everybody still looked at her as Princess Diana. She was mourned by the whole world, whereas Martin Luther King, I don't think you could say that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, probably because at that time there was a large percentage of the people that really hated Martin Luther King. He was a hated guy by his opposition for obvious reasons. It's more of a racial thing than him being a bad guy or him having a bad message. Princess Diana, it's interesting. I mean, she has to be a gold digger, right? I mean, look how ugly that husband was that she married. Let's face it. I mean, look at the girls who are marrying these princes now. I mean, if they were just regular Joe Schmoes on the street, they wouldn't have a shot in hell. Right? Am I wrong?
They might not be good looking, but they might have a very good heart, Adam. They have the weight of a country on their shoulders, and she took on that burden. And it's not just a country. It's an empire where the sun never sets on it.
Yeah, 1650. No, I mean, I think that she was. They're both really big figures. I mean, if we lived in England, I mean, hell, that would probably be their number one of all time. Unfortunately for you and your argument, we don't.
But here's the thing: her funeral was on in the United States and Canada and Mexico and Spain and France and everywhere else in the world.
First off, Mexico didn't even have TV back then.
That's probably true. But she still cared about the Mexican people. And, Martin Luther King, as great as he was and as important as he was, That was an American thing, not a whole world thing.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me chime in here and say that this was much more of a heavy hitter debate than the first one. In all seriousness, these were both obviously very big names. At the time that they died, obviously very well known, very big deal. I wasn't around, neither were you guys when Martin Luther King died, but
No.
I can only imagine what type of uproar it was at the time. I do vaguely remember when Princess Diana died as a kid, and I remember that it was a big deal. And I remember, them showing on TV, people, just random American people crying like it was somebody that they knew. Both tragic losses. I do have to say that, Nick, I think you knocked it out of the park with your argument. I think you tugged at the heartstrings. I think you played it very well, knowing that you couldn't badmouth MLK, so you just simply chose to ramble about Princess Diana and call her the people's princess that she was. And for that reason, Nick wins round 2.
Yeah. Needed that one. Billy Mays kind of let me down.
I actually do remember where I was whenever I heard she died. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people on this list I do kind of remember, but that's another one. Like, I remember Dale Earnhardt, and I remember her. Some other ones are pretty old, so Michael Jackson, I remember that too. But yeah, so I mean, I can see your point of as far as her impact worldwide. Plus, media, whenever you look at it, media really was taking off at that point. You know, as far as tabloid media, I mean, she was followed by tabloids. That's what they said killed her. They were chasing her because they wanted more information. You know, they wanted her. You know, she was like the Kardashians of the 90s, I guess. So
yeah.
Yeah, so it was obviously a very big story. I'm sure MLK was a big story, but the news was able to reach a much broader audience at the time that Princess Diana died. I think for that reason, obviously, it went worldwide more so than, I'm guessing, more so than MLK. Both good arguments, though, boys. Next up, Adam, you get to introduce the next one.
All right. So this one is another big one, but it may not really, young people may not really care much about it, but Adolf Hitler. So the guy, and they suspect there's another conspiracy theory about this guy now. If you ever watched the show, or they are hunting Hitler or something, and they're searching like South America for him, which is pretty interesting. But essentially, this guy was the leader of the Third Reich. He was the person who was pushing the World War II. Essentially, he was the guy. And he killed himself with his girlfriend at the time, Eva Braun, supposedly, unless you believe the conspiracy theory. But when he did that, though, it essentially ended Germany's their part in World War II, which had killed millions of people. So I think that Adolf Hitler dying and killing himself had to have been one of worldwide. You want to talk about a worldwide thing? It affected everyone around the world that he finally died. So I think that's a good one.
Okay, Nick.
All right. I'm going to win this one with the guy that got killed with Nicole Brown Simpson. Okay.
Ron Burgundy, right?
Ron Burgundy.
Ronald Goldman.
He was everything you would imagine a Hollywood waiter to be. He had the slick back, greasy hair. He knew karate, and he was banging out a really good-looking blonde chick. Now, they say that's just speculation, but come on. Really? He's running over to Nicole Brown Simpson to just drop off some glasses while she's wearing a little negligee with some music on, with some candles going. He's about to turn that out. Good for him. It's too bad that, somebody had to show up and ruin their good time. But this guy gave a fight. He stood his ground. He lost. But, you don't win every battle. Unfortunately, he didn't get to fight another one. But the one thing that I remember gave this world was the fact that there are actual hateable victim families. And it's terrible to say.
It's really
Seriously, was there anybody more annoying than Fred fucking Goldman?
Wow,
With
dude.
Little,
That's so
with his
awesome.
little Pringles, Mr. Pringles mustache, all up on the news all the time. It's like, just shut the fuck up.
Wow.
And I don't even feel bad about saying it. And like the dude buys the rights to, not buys, he kind of, you know, through the lawsuit, got the rights to the book If I Did It, and he releases it. It makes buku dollars. Like, he was a hateable victim's father, and we didn't really have a hateable victim up until that point, and Ron Goldman gave that to us. My rebuttal is what's going to win this.
Jeez. Okay, Adam, what do you got to say about that?
First off, he must not have been very good at karate, obviously.
Don't hold that against him.
He must have took Rex Kwon Do, another one of Nick's favorites. But I think this is interesting. This story captivated the country, but I'm not sure if it was because of Ron Goldman. It was more because of O.J. Simpson, the guy who was allegedly or accused of doing it. I mean, he found innocent or not guilty, I should say. But I don't really think that Ron Goldman and his death can really compare to the end of the World War II. But maybe you can convince me otherwise.
All right. Can his death compare to the end of World War II? No. What it can't compare to, though, if you're talking death for death, we don't even know if Hitler died in that bunker that day. There is strong evidence that he got out of the bunker. The skull that the Russians apparently have, that they say, this is Hitler's skull. It's the skull of a, 24-year-old female. It's not even the skull of a man. They have no remains of Hitler. There is an entire 3-season docu-series based on the fact that Hitler got out of Germany. Germany did surrender, but there is no proof that Hitler actually died. Our FBI spent millions of dollars tracking what they thought was Hitler in South America.
Okay, you are selling my argument, basically, because his death was so amazing and questioned, and it's such a big story that, I mean, you just pitched it. I can't do a better job than you telling me about all this stuff. It was.
But the thing is, Nick, there was no death. There was no death to pitch here. He didn't die. The war ended, yes, but he didn't die. So maybe not. To pitch his death, it's not even guaranteed that his death happened.
Okay, I think. I mean, I see what you're saying, which I think makes my point even stronger. That it's such an amazing death that they want to question it. But if you ask most people, like our parents' age, when did Adolf Hitler die? They would say, 1945. They're not going to say, oh, he was knocked down to Bolivia and he's been hanging out down there, and maybe he's still alive. I mean, he's not still alive now. But I just think that for younger people or conspiracy theory people who are aware, then maybe, they don't believe it. But for most people, they believe Adolf Hitler died in that bunker. So
I think it's an interesting point that Nick brings to the table. If you look at the people we've talked about so far, they are Michael Jackson, Dale Earnhardt, JFK, Billy Mays, Princess Diana, MLK, Ron Goldman, and Hitler. Hitler is the only one on that entire list so far that maybe died, but maybe he didn't die the way we think he died. I think that Nick nailed his rebuttal. I thought this was going to be a laughable debate when you guys first introduced Hitler to the guy that was with Nicole Brown Simpson. I can honestly say that Hitler was obviously a famous death, but it was a different time. When Ron Goldman died, it was a complete circus. It was a circus like the United States media had never seen before, not since Princess Diana. And it was Princess Diana times 100. For that reason, I have to give this round to Ron Goldman and Nick.
Boom.
No way. Ron Goldman wasn't even the most important death in that whole thing. So
Now, I want to make a note. I want to make a
Still on the
note
list.
on that. There's an asterisk here. I think that it's basically the same. It is obviously the same crime as Nicole Brown Simpson, who you also have on your list. Don't bring her into this debate later on, because it's all the same. It's all the same debate, and it's all the same person. It's all the same crime, as far as I'm concerned. I think, Nick, I think you're right when you said early on in your debate that people were more enthused with O.J. Simpson. Yeah, true. However, it's all one crime rolled together. The only part that you should be regretful of is the hateable victim's family. That crossed the line. You should say a prayer.
I stand by it. Look, he didn't deserve what happened to him, but he's a hateable douche.
well,
People see hateable douches and still victims. That's what we learned from Ron Goldman.
well, the thing about the book, this isn't trying to or win this argument, but the thing about the book, didn't you feel like that book was OJ incriminating himself? So if you were the family, wouldn't you say, look, I'm going to get this out here? The guy's basically saying he did it. Why would you hide that? Especially if you're going to make money off of it.
Because it didn't fit my argument.
No.
But now that the jury is out, so to speak, you
Yeah.
can admit that of course he would release that. Of course he was not a terrible father for releasing that book, because it proves what he was trying to argue and fight for.
It was mainly the mustache, and he never got rid of it. If you see him to this day, he still has the Mr. Pringles mustache.
But also,
It's like-
still to this day, when they do interviews, he still gets choked up and cries real tears. You're an asshole.
I didn't say I don't feel bad for him. I'm just saying I don't want to grab a beer with the dude because he seems like a douche.
You basically said you don't feel bad for him, or
That's
something
not
like
true.
that. All right, moving on. Nick, you get to introduce for the next round. What do you think?
I'm taking Tupac Shaker. I'm bringing him to the table. All right, this dude he took gangster rap music from, this thing that was just on the edge of underground, took it and smashed it all the way through whatever glass ceiling rap was behind. He was the top star. He was the best lyricist in the game. He was everything that every rapper wanted to be. The only problem was he wanted to be a gangbanger. So he started fucking around with Crips when he shouldn't have been doing it. And he got shot up in Las Vegas. This spawned a gang war. This also spawned the killing of the second biggest rapper at the time. And it's all because of Tupac. Everybody. You want to talk about conspiracy theories? Holy shit, those went on forever. But unlike, what was his name? Hitler, that old chestnut, they actually have verifiable truth that Tupac is dead.
According to you.
They have a confession out now. It was the Southside Crip.
Of Tupac?
Yeah. Yeah, Keefe D said it was him and his nephew, Orlando Anderson, that took care of business that night.
Interesting.
All
And
right.
it was Puff Daddy that put on the hit. The same Puff Daddy that fills in with Regis and Kathy Lee, or I guess that really shows my age there.
Also, all conspiracy stuff, though.
Nah, that's been pretty well proven. It's been proven, but it can't be proven in court type thing.
Oh, now
It's the old adage of what's true and what can be proven in court.
I think I heard a flat earther muddle those same words.
All right. Speaking of flat earthers, Adam, you're up.
Okay, I'll stay in the music genre, and I'll go with John Lennon. Now, John Lennon, you talked about Tupac bringing rap out of the underground, which I can't go that far to give him that kind of credit, just because just look at the albums that came out Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, The Chronic, before really Tupac's big albums blew up. So I don't think he was the main guy in that whole rap thing. Whereas John Lennon and the Beatles, I mean, I can see you sweating over there because those guys basically revolutionized music. And that's another guy. He's still mourned to this day and beloved. So I think, and he also had a guy with 3 names kill him, Mark David Chapman. So we have a little, like, I didn't mention Lee Harvey Oswald, Mark David Chapman, and James Earl Ray. I mean, he fits the top 3 right there, baby.
Well, Adam, let me be clear on something.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of the population has a first, a middle, and a last name. Carry on.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know, but they don't go by it. No one calls me by my middle name. And
what is your middle name so I can start referring to you like
I'm
that?
not telling you because I haven't got caught killing anybody yet. Keyword being caught.
Yet.
And
Well,
yet.
after listening to last week's episode about where to hide a body, there is a strong emphasis on the word yet.
Yeah, I mean, they changed, but the Beatles and John Lennon changed music. So they changed not just one genre of music, they changed all music. Whereas Nick's trying to say Tupac getting shot. I mean, hey, I love Tupac just like the next guy, but it's nowhere in comparison.
All right. So John Lennon gets shot in 1980, right after the Double Fantasy album came out. That album sucked. He was so past his prime at that point. He went through the 70s where he was just on a coke binge with Harry Nilsson, just wasting his. Really, him getting shot at that age did him a favor, so he couldn't do any more damage to his freaking legacy. He was so washed up and over the hill at that point. He's at the peak, the pinnacle of his career. He just got done with All Eyes on Me. Machiavelli, the 7-Day Theory was just about to come out. He was he was what John Lennon was 20 years before John Lennon got shot.
Very interesting. I disagree, but very interesting. I think some people would argue out of the 2 people who got killed, Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac, they would argue that Tupac was less important than Notorious Big.
See, here's why that's bullshit. Biggie ripped everything off of Tupac. He ripped off his style. He ripped off his flow. He even ripped off his fucking death. Nothing but a loser. He sucked.
So you're saying he put a hit out on himself?
Yeah, he's like, hey, Tupac's gonna do it. I'm gonna do it too.
I just think your absurdity allows me to win this one.
I think Quaid might be frozen up there.
No, I am frozen in my thoughts. For
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just taking this all in. Nick, you make some great arguments. Also, some somewhat ridiculous arguments, but you make some great arguments with Tupac. Adam, the John Lennon argument kind of speaks for itself. Doesn't leave a lot of debating that you even have to do. It's interesting that you both chose somebody in the music world for this one. I do know for sure, not from personally living through either one of these, but I do know for certain that both of these were a big deal when they happened. One of these, in my opinion, was much more widespread across different communities and across different neighborhoods and across different states and even across different countries. And for that reason, John Lennon and Adam win this round.
Yeah, that was a good counter for Tupac for sure. Tupac was one of my heavy hitters too. I really thought that one would stand.
I'll tell you this: when you guys first introduced this, when you introduced Tupac, I thought, oh boy, that's a big one. And I thought to myself, looking at Adam's list, the only person in my thought that could even maybe stand a chance, depending on how the argument went, would have been John Lennon. So well played on both of your parts there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's tough it really is how you remember it, I guess. And John Lennon, I think, affected more people worldwide. Kind of goes back to the Princess Diana argument.
Yeah.
My other musical one to go that I was thinking stick with musical. That way it's apples to apples type of comparison for Quaid. And it was Kurt Cobain. Now, Kurt Cobain, I'm not going to argue for him right now, but I kind of look at it as I'm not sure Kurt Cobain could have beat Tupac. It would be very close. I just think that John Lennon was such a big deal that, that knocked off a big dog for you.
Well, and John Lennon, came from another country originally, so they had that following, plus the following that they had here, and they were across, multiple generations at that point. Mm-hmm. Tupac was probably going to be, and at this point, and his legacy is equally as big, maybe. But in that moment, at the time that it happened, I think the Beatles had obviously, been such a huge band for so many years. It was everybody was touched by that. Tupac was more of a small group of people.
And really, Tupac, if he would have lived, he probably would have just been like R. Kelly or Warren G.
Well, that's kind of
How dare you insult the granddaddy of G-Funk?
I take it back.
Mr. Warren G.
You win with Tupac. No, just kidding. But that was hugely disrespectful on your part, Adam.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Since you nicked Nicole Brown Simpson, can I add add the one that I had you replace for Dale Earnhardt back into the mix?
I gotta say, oh boy,
because you did nix one of my 10.
I did, but you understand the reason why I did it. It would have been.
But you didn't have a problem with both of them on the list when I turned it in.
I didn't think that you would actually argue both of them, and that's why I ignored it and let it go. I will tell you this, that this is tough because you used Dale Earnhardt, who you replaced somebody else with.
Okay, it's fine. I'll go with what I got.
No, for the sake of making it fair, because in the rules I never said I have the authority or the power to say you can't use one, and I kind of did that, which is kind of a dick move on my part. I will allow you to use the one that you had on your list originally, and this is true. This is actually true, Adam. I can screenshot you the text conversation if you'd like to see it. This actually happened. He said earlier today, he texted me and said, remove blank, replace him with Dale Earnhardt.
You go ahead and say who blank was.
Do you want me to say it right now?
Yeah,
you don't have to use them in this round or anything, but Elvis.
Yeah. Okay.
Elvis is the person.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring Elvis. Is it my
No, it's Adam's turn to bring one up.
I think Nick's gone first like every time, so no, I'm kidding. So I know what you're going with.
Right now we're 2-2, just so everybody is aware.
This is basically for the win because we have 2 ties too.
Correct.
Woo.
So this is going to be the last of the Mohicans right here.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to be tough. And I'm going to go with...
You better bring the Thunder. Whoever you think the Thunder is.
I think it's the Thunder on the worldwide theme still. Osama bin Laden. Okay. So the guy is the alleged mastermind of 9/11. Which sunk the United States into 2 wars across the world. And this hunt for him went on for, 10 years, almost 10 years. So they finally got him. There was just a pouring of joy whenever they killed him. And I really feel like it was a huge impact for the country. Patriotic feelings at the time, I feel like, people were sick and tired of us being stuck in this war. The guy got away with killing thousands of Americans, and essentially they finally got him. And I feel like for the United States and really for the world, it was a huge win. So that's why I think his his death is important.
All right, Nick, what do you think? Are you gonna bring Andy Dick to the table here, or
it's maybe that or the other guy from Milli Vanilli. You know what? I'll try to win this one. I'm bringing Elvis, the king. You want to talk about changing the world of music, and you bring up John Lennon, what he did to music in the previous argument. Well, the one person that influenced John Lennon was Elvis. Elvis was the fucking king. The king of the music, the king of the theater, the king of Vegas. He was the king. He was everything that everybody wanted to be, that, or wanted to be with. If you were one of them 50s girls dancing or whatever, the king was the icon. The icon that spread around the world, that influenced the Beatles, that changed the world. And he died on the shitter, dropping a deuce.
Okay.
It is the only shit that Elvis ever gave.
Yeah. Okay. This is a lot like Michael Jackson in the sense that, he was a pedophile too. So I think that does make it a pretty big story. But Elvis...
Wait. Time out, Adam.
Yeah.
You say Elvis was a pedophile too?
Well, I guess we're not sure about Michael Jackson, but I think we both think he is. But yeah, definitely Elvis. I mean, he was like screwing 12 to 13-year-old girls like his whole career. I think we all know about this. Did he marry Lisa Marie Presley when she was like 9 or something?
That's his daughter.
I mean,
I'm sorry. Created her.
But she was only 9 years younger than his wife. That's what I meant to say.
We're going to have to get a fact check on some of this stuff, but carry on.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know you said that Elvis, a lot of people liked Elvis. I was never a big Elvis person, but I don't think it necessarily means, he can't win the argument. But you say he influenced the Beatles, and, I mean, that's kind of, goofy in the sense that Elvis kind of was influenced by a lot of black music. So were the Beatles. People will get influenced, but the music was so much different than the Beatles. Now, there may be a group of people who love Elvis as much or more than the Beatles, but I think more people like the Beatles than they do Elvis. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I mean, I'm not sure that I can name any songs off the top of my head that Elvis sang, but I'm sure people could. I mean, he has a whole... I'm sure there's people. I don't know. And didn't Michael Jackson own Elvis's... Or am I getting something mixed up there?
Michael Jackson owned the Beatles catalog.
Oh, the Beatles. There you go. So, yeah, Michael Jackson didn't buy Elvis's. He bought the Beatles. So there you go.
Well, now you're arguing the Beatles against Elvis. When really,
I'm not. I'm just saying you argued at the start. So,
well, no, it's because of the icon that he is. There would be no Beatles without Elvis Presley.
Well, there would be no ISIS without Obama. I mean, Bin Laden. Freudian slip, maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. And as true as that may be, your first comment. Oh,
fuck.
That's hilarious. As true as that may be, Elvis changed the world for the better. What did your guy do? He was a terrorist. Fuck him.
I'm not arguing that
America would rather the king Elvis win this argument than a soft shit-faced Bin Laden.
The person.
God bless America.
The person or the person they are or were isn't what we're arguing here. It's whose death was, bigger. And I think for America, Osama bin Laden's was bigger. He's a terrible guy. I'm not going to argue that.
At this point, last counter argument about it. Bin Laden.
You get last word.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I get last word. Bin Laden, Bin Laden hadn't been active for like what 12 years prior.
No, that's not true.
He was hiding out.
First off, it was 10 years later when he died. But
10
yeah,
years?
but he
Yeah.
was still the puppet master pulling the strings. That's how they caught him. He was still pulling the strings, and they caught him by his people communicating to him.
Yeah.
They followed them. So, I mean, he was still involved. But this is a tough one, too. Corey Quaid.
This really is actually a tough one. You guys had some very good arguments back and forth. You had some ridiculous banter back and forth also, but there's some really good points made there. I think it'd be very difficult to argue against the impact, the worldly impact that Osama bin Laden had, or as Adam calls him, Obama, whatever you want to refer to him as.
I was actually referring to Obama starting or being the cause of ISIS, and I didn't exactly mean that.
It is hard to argue and not be able to see the impact that he had on the entire world, because quite frankly, we lived through that. So it kind of gives you a different perspective than some of these older ones, maybe even like Elvis, some of these older ones that we know were a big deal, but we didn't actually live through. On the flip side of thing, Nick, you nail it when you say that Elvis was the king. That's in fact exactly what he was. He wasn't just a king back in the 50s or 60s or 70s. He is still the king. And if you talk to people and ask people and interview people and watch documentaries, he still is referred to as the king, the one and only. I think that the one reason why my decision is what it is that one of these people, when they died, it was somewhat quickly replaced with another news story. On the other hand, one of these people, when they died, it has never been actually replaced with another news story. And that person is Elvis Presley. So for those reasons, Nick and the King win this round.
Wow.
And the game.
And that is the game,
actually. Like to win. That's what it feels like to win. Wow.
Yeah, that's 3-2. Nick wins with Elvis, Ron Goldman, and Princess Diana. Adam, you had two in there, JFK
Ron Goldman.
and John Lennon. I will say that the wild card, if you look through the whole entire list, is definitely Ron Goldman. But I think what won it for you, Nick, in my opinion, from my perspective, is the argument and how big and popular that whole entire crime was. It was out of this world.
And the fact that we talked about that Hitler didn't even die at that point.
Still making shows about it somehow.
Because they're not sure. Because they're not sure if he's still alive or not.
Hey, so I wanted to kind of bring them up because I thought they were cool. I had 14 total. And Dick, did you have any extras that you kind of had and on the edge of yours that you weren't sure?
Well, I had a lot of real ones. Like JFK was on my list at first. RFK was on there, and Kurt Cobain was another one.
Okay.
And then like I'm looking at this, and it's like, let's spice it up a little. Let's get Milli Vanilli. I don't even know how the guy died. I don't even know what his name was, but he was a Grammy award-winning artist.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I see what you mean. There was a couple for me that I really remembered. Now I remember them, but I didn't necessarily think that other people would really. They weren't big. They were big, I guess, at the time. But like Chris Farley.
Yeah, that was a huge one.
Phil Hartman. I know that's both Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Those were Phil Hartman, murder, suicide. His wife killed him. And then I remember Pat Tillman like super clearly whenever he died. And then I had one on here, and then you guys kind of limited to 100 years, but it's kind of back to my old historical ones. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. I mean, that's basically a trickle-down effect of why the world is the way it is.
Right.
From that moment on. But that was in 1914, so it's over 100 years.
Right. I think that's got to be the second most famous death in history.
Yeah. Probably. What's
Right
first?
behind Jesus.
Yeah, there you go.
I would put it above. I would put it above Julius Caesar.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But that one was over 100 years. But it was interesting to kind of think about and look into. I had Steve Jobs on there. I mean, he created Apple, and for some people in this country, in this world, that was like a really, as far as his death goes, it was like one of those things people talked about a
Oh
lot.
yeah, absolutely.
And especially as he had cancer and he tried to like beat it with like holistic things.
Yeah.
When he probably should have just got regular cancer treatment. So that was, and then Roberto Clemente was on my list,
Right.
but I didn't talk about him. But he died on a flight he was basically taking humanitarian aid to Nicaragua after an earthquake, and his plane crashed. He died, and that was in the prime of his career.
Yeah, and if you look at the impact he had on baseball, I mean, there's a main reason why there's a lot of players from the Caribbean, and it's because of Roberto Clemente.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look how many guys, and just like you said, right now, currently, I don't know what the percentage is, but like those players from Latin America playing baseball in Major League, it's a huge amount of guys. And I would have to say and he seemed like a good guy, obviously.
Right.
And I think at the time when that happened, that was probably a really big one. So
yeah.
All pretty interesting. They're all made the news. They all made the news in their day.
Yeah. The one that I dropped from my list that was actually on my list and I took off was John Paul II. That one was pretty impactful. I remember when that happened. That was 2005. Yeah, 2005.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that obviously there's how many Catholics across the world affected,
Yeah.
probably 1 billion people on this. So.
True.
There was a couple that I had kind of made some notes on. Just I was kind of curious if you guys would have any of these. And again, it depends on what you come from and what you're into and what your interests are. Steve McNair, I thought was an interesting one just for me personally as a big football fan. Steve McNair was a murder-suicide with his mistress, if you guys remember that one or not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Another one was Len Bias, which was, older, but do you guys remember the Len Bias story? Drafted by the Boston Celtics, and I believe it was cocaine overdose, and first time he ever used it and killed him.
Yeah, that's what I think. Early 80s, like 1982-ish, probably. I mean, we weren't really like around, but I think that's a story that really lived on because they're like, look, all you have to do, look at Len Bias, the greatest athlete, all the #1 pick, does coke one time, dies. And I think that was something that, I mean, people it really resonate with.
I think it's something that you still hear people say. It only takes one time, and I think that's where it stems from. The other two that I thought were interesting that maybe one of you would have would be Anna Nicole Smith and also Prince. I was really surprised neither one of you had Prince on your list. Did you think about that one at all?
I did, and I thought for sure Nick would have Prince.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I wanted to make my list a little more challenging.
You did.
So I put like Paul Walker on there instead of Prince, but Prince definitely crossed my mind. Prince.
I'll tell you what's super interesting.
Good.
Super interesting that, Nick, you decided to make your list more interesting, if you will, and you actually somehow pulled it out of your ass and won.
I know, that is.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for the debate. And we will be back next week. The topic is still up for debate. If you have a topic that you would like to hear us debate, please shoot us a text message, phone call, Facebook message, post it on our wall, whatever you got to do. And we will incorporate it into the show if we feel like it's worth debating. If it's something stupid, then piss off. See you next week.
Okay, let me hit stop on this biatch. All righty.